Hello world, and we are back. And my name is Fischl. This is going to be episode 32 of my poker vlog. And today I'm going to talk about a session that occurred. It was December 21st. It was at Orange City, where the high hand promotion there for that day was 1,000, 2,000 every 30 minutes. So the room got like 75% filled at 11 a.m. Every table was in use a few hours later. So the room was packed. There was a lot of people there, a lot of fun. And I had quite a roller coaster of a session. I'm going to talk about a decent number of hands. We're going to get right into it. So the first hand, pretty early on, I have pocket tens. A early position player raises to 20. There's two callers. I call, one other player calls. We go 5 ways to a flop, which comes 9, 4, deuce, 2 diamonds. The early position pre-flop raiser bets $50. Now it folds to me with pocket tens, actually having an overpair. I could raise, but I think my hand's strong enough to call in position and see what happens later, and everyone else folds. Heads up to a turn, which comes a 3 offsuit. So when that card hits, it's a pretty safe card. I still have an overpair, but the opponent leads out for $100. So now my thinking is that he could do this with any number of aces, because now he has a straight draw, as well as if he just had like ace king, maybe ace of diamonds. I don't really see a reason to fold yet, because I have an overpair. Like, it just seems too weak to just fold to some aggression. So I call. River is a deuce of diamonds. Flush draw gets there, but my opponent only bets 100 at this point. Now with this exact bet, it felt really weak. It felt like maybe ace 9 when the bet is a consistent sizing on the turn and the river, 100 and 100. It felt really weak to me, as well as the fact that I was getting 5 to 1, 100 to win 500, had an overpair. I just called, and my opponent had pocket kings. So that's a little bit unfortunate. I think in retrospect, it's a pretty easy fold, because like I said, if he had ace anything of diamonds, the diamonds got there. You know, he's kind of repping an overpair pretty obviously. Bet into 5 people on the flop and bet. I think it's a fold, but I called getting good odds and I was wrong. So that happened.
Yeah, listen. We fucked up. Things got out of control, and
the next interesting hand, a middle position player raises to $15. I am on the button with king 10 of hearts. Both blinds call, and we go 4 ways to a flop, which comes king queen 7, 1 heart. I'm very happy with my hand at this point. Blinds check, the pre-flop aggressor checks, and I throw out a bet of $25 for pure value, because check to me and I have top pair. Sounds good. The blinds fold and the pre-flop aggressor calls. The turn, a 10 of clubs brings 2 clubs. And with this card, my opponent decides to lead out for 75. It's quite a large bet. I made 2 pairs, so I'm quite confused about the check on the flop, lead out on the turn. Very unorthodox, very strange. I guess ace jack is possible here a decent amount of the time, but I also think like ace clubs makes a lot of sense too. Ace anything of clubs, I think that makes a lot of sense. And there's all kinds of 2 pairs. Queen 10, I guess, would do the same thing. I don't know, I made 2 pair. I wasn't gonna fold, I call. The river is an offsuit ace, and now the opponent checks to me. Now at this point, I could turn my hand into a bluff and just bet half pot, 3/4 pot, just repping a jack, which theoretically I would call a lot of flops with if I had a jack just open-ended. But I actually have a good amount of showdown value, because he checked, he never has a straight. The flush draw missed. I have 2 pair. I beat queen 10. For the reason of showdown value, I check. He shows pocket queens. So kind of a unlucky flop and an unlucky turn for me, and it's an interesting check by him on the flop when he flops a set. But I guess I got a pretty good run out to save some money with the 4 card on board. Either way, getting beaten pretty bad so far. So at this point,
we're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay, all right? What the fuck is going on?
Along with some medium hands, I reload for an extra 500 bucks into the game for 1,300, which is not ideal. Either way, we're not done yet. So a little bit later, I have pocket sevens in middle position with 4 limpers to me. I limp, just gonna set mine, and we go 7 ways to a flop, which comes queen 9-5 rainbow. Okay, I missed. Checks all the way to me. I check. Everyone checks. Turn is a king. Checks all the way around again. River is a 7. That's a welcomed sight. One of the blinds leads out for 10. I raise to 25. And an even later position player raises to 100. And then it folds back to me. Facing a pot size bet, and I have a set. I think I'm just supposed to call here. Any flopped 2-pair or rivered 2-pair, which rivered is unlikely because I double block it. But any 2-pair that flopped or turned it and just wanted to get some money in there, I feel like might check, and then go for some real value on the river. And regardless, I have a set. You know, I call. I beat king queen. That's a likely hand that he has. But no, my late position opponent showed 6-8. That was quite a salty river card. River is set, river is straight. Ugh, that was nasty.
You're holding 50,000 volts, little man. Don't be afraid to ride the lightning.
No! No! In the face! In the face! No! Oh, he's still...
And I rebuy again for another $500. So at this point, I am into this game for $1,800 before...
Thinking about getting my bartender's license.
We have to turn it around. We're not giving up yet. With 2 limpers to me, I am on the button with king 4 of hearts. Clearly tilted because not a hand you should be playing too often. But I'm definitely going to play a suited king in position with a few limpers. So we're 5 ways to a limped pot, which comes queen 4 deuce 1 heart. A middle position player bets $15. I'm not going to fold a pair, especially with how much money I'm down, so I call. Everyone else folds. Turn is a 7 of hearts, so that's a pretty good card for me. Make a backdoor flush draw. Now my opponent bets 20. When he doesn't size up too much, and he just seems like a weaker player, have never really seen him before, definitely not a reg, I decide that now is the time to semi-bluff raise, so I make it $55. I think that a lot of weak queens are going to have to fold here, especially when you're showing how weak you are already. He chooses not to. He calls. And the turn is a 3 of hearts, so we get there. That's wonderful. And even better, my opponent leads out for $55.
Think you gonna get away with it? Not up in here!
Not up in here!
And now I have to put on the full Hollywood, just, you know, for a good 10-20 seconds before I choose the sizing of all in. And I do that because I think that, first of all, when he did that, I thought that he had a strong hand that he didn't want to check down, and he only had about $300 total, so the all-in is, I guess it's a little bit on the bigger side. In retrospect, to me, that seems like, the 55 seemed like an obvious blocker bet, and maybe a min raise gets paid. Maybe he's going to fold anyway. You know, in retrospect, it felt very blockerish. I guess I wasn't going to get any more. All right, a little bit later, it's folded to me. I'm in middle position. I have pocket 5s. I raised to $20 because the blinds in this particular hand are very, very weak, and I've been kind of abusing them a little bit all night to grind back, you know, $7 and $12 at a time. But in this hand, the button 3 bets to 55, and the blinds fold, and it's back to me. So facing a 3 bet with pocket 5s, not really a phenomenal situation, but the opponent in this hand has been very willing to bluff. He's very competent, and he has about 2.5K in front of him. So a $55 re-raise is not too significant to him either. I decide to see if I can set mine or get a favorable flop. And the flop is pretty good for my hand. It's 2-3-4 rainbow. I consider leading here. I consider jamming here because I don't think he ever has an actual overpair, because I've seen him play overpairs through the time I've been sitting with him, and he's bet much, much bigger when he's had overpairs, or when he's had high pairs when he 3-bets. He's bet much bigger. So I've kind of taken that out of what I think he can have. I consider just ripping it in or leading, but I choose to check, and he bets $95. And the sizing is quite suspect. It's large. It feels like he wants me to fold, and it feels like he shouldn't be afraid of this flop too much. So I don't see any reason to fold, because it looks bluffy to me. So I call. I consider just check raise jamming as well, because for several reasons. One, I think that if he has ace anything, he might just call it off with his 2.5k stack and be well behind. Thinking his ace is live, his straight draw is live, and whatever his overcard is live, but his ace is dead, his straight is double blocked, and he'd be putting it all in for 5 outs. I consider check jamming there because an ace might call, and I'd be well ahead of it. But I choose a more passive line. I just call. Turn is the 8 of diamonds. Not a great card for me. It goes check, check, which I'm kind of happy about. I think it shows that he has ace something. The river is the 10 of diamonds, brings backdoor diamonds. I check, and I'm prepared to call a bet of about $200 and just bluff catch him so hard, because this player has the ability to bluff. My read is that he has ace something. I mean, if he has ace 10, that's unlucky for me, but I think I'm good here a lot of the time, so I'm prepared to call a bet. But he thankfully checks it back, and I show pocket fives, as it was good, you know. So we're on the uptick. We're coming back a little bit. At this point, I think we're only down about $600 or so, which from being down 900, 1,000, pretty good start to a comeback. In this next hand, with one limper to me, I raised to $20 with pocket queens. The table has been quite passive at this point, and I've been kind of stealing the blinds consistently. I'm not going to size up because I actually want a few calls with queens. I get the small blind and the limper in there. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. So the flop is king, queen, 10. So at this point, I'm just hoping someone has king 10. I'm about to get a full double up. I'm going to, be unstuck, and this is the flop of dreams for me. It's check to me. I bet a straightforward 25, hoping for a king, maybe a king 10 to call. Both players call, so that's good for me. Turn is another king. Please, no one have king 10 at this point, is my next thought. The small blind leads out for $50. Limper is all in for about 47. It's on to me. Any other king, I think, is going to call a raise and call another bet on various rivers. I decide that I'm going to re-raise kind of small because I want to keep him in there. I want to build the side pot to keep him kind of committed for my river bet. So I raise it to 125. He calls for 75 more, and we have a decent sized $150 side pot brewing that I think he might feel compelled to stay in for. The river is an ace. For a first glance, it seems like a bad card, but the small blind is one of the more active players at the table, and I guarantee he would have 3-bet me with ace king. So I'm not worried about that. King 10 is still a possibility, but he checks to me. I think that I have to go for my decent size bet, and hopefully a king with no kicker will call. So I bet 275. He thinks for a decent amount of time, and then eventually folds king jack face up. I mean, he obviously never thinks a straight is good, and he says later that he put me on a king, and the only king that he beats now is king 9, because every other king is a full house. Good fold by that player, I guess. I'm upset I didn't get paid, but good fold. For limpers to me, I have pocket 7s. I make it $25, sizing up a bit, try to steal some blinds and some limps and get everyone out of there. Well, I get 4 callers. We go 5 ways to a flop, which comes 7-4 deuce, literally the flop of dreams. When it's check to me, I'm never gonna check here. There's 2 diamonds on board, and I think that a lot of people are just gonna think that I'm continuation betting when I'm just trying to build a pot. So I bet $50 and I get 2 callers. So at this point, I assume most of them have diamonds, at least one of them, and I'm just praying that a diamond doesn't come. Well, the turn is another 4. And now I'm praying a diamond comes on the river. So when it's checked to me, I bet 125, thinking that they're both gonna call again, and a 4 is in there, maybe an overpair will be in there, diamonds should be in there. Well, they both call a second time. The river is an offsuit 3. So would have preferred a diamond, think I get a full double up on a diamond, but it's not. It's a 3. It is checked to me, and I go for a polarizing sizing. I go big with it, maybe because I want to get unstuck, maybe because I think that I now can rep missed diamonds and an overpair would call a larger bet. But regardless, I choose a sizing of $500, so very, very large. My opponent to my, another reason I picked it was my opponent to the left is the same guy who has about 2.5K. So I don't think that that bet is too big for that particular player to call. And that was my reasoning at the time. You know, if you had a stack of like 700-800, it's kind of a ridiculous bet. But for this player, I think that I can get called by it. Well, he thinks for a decent amount of time before he folds. And the other player folds ace high diamonds face up. Boy, I wish that was the 3 of diamonds on the river. At that point, I had about $2,300 in front of me, pretty good. Unstuck because I'm in for 1,800. And a final hand of kind of note. I don't know about these flipping things. They never seem to work out for me. So shortly after that, I leave into the game for $1,800. Out of the game for $2,113 for a solid 8 hours. That turns out to be a little over $39 an hour and about 8 big blinds an hour, which obviously the goal is to be at least 10 big blinds an hour. When you go from a roller coaster from under minus 1,300 to plus 300, that's quite a swing, quite a happy swing in your favor. And to celebrate, I went to a wonderful restaurant in Orlando, went straight there. It's called Top Hot Pot, and the whole thing there is it's this conveyor belt, and you have this boiling hot pot soup type thing in front of you, and you just grab all the meats and vegetables and everything you want and boil it in a pot and eat it, and it's wonderful. And I highly recommend anyone who's never tried it before, check it out. It's quite an experience. If you've watched all the way to this point, thank you for your support, and any comments on a hand that I played, any line that would be better or worse, I read them all. I may not respond, but I do read them, and I'd appreciate any feedback. So thank you.